Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished guests. Welcome to our special post show here at the Oakville Festivals of Film and Art in OFFA 2024. My name is Tyler Collins. I'm one of the festival hosts, and we're so glad that you joined us this evening for tonight's presentation of Close to You. This is one of the first shows anywhere here in Canada and ahead of its exclusive release across the country. But we have a special treat for you to end this evening's proceedings. Joining me now, we have got a live conversation that we have pre-recorded in advance with the film's director. And so we won't be taking questions live for this event. However, we have a special conversation pre-written just for you right now here in the theater. Joining me here on Zoom is the incredibly talented director, joining us from his home in Hampstead, North London. He is the director of the film, he was a co-writer on the film, and the composer of the film, Mr. Dominic Savage. Hello, Mr. Savage. Thank you so much for joining us here with the Oakville audiences.
It's really nice to be here if it's virtually, that's what it is. I wanted to come, but I couldn't. So anyway, I'm here via Zoom. So it's nice to be here.
Well, you're with here in spirit. You're here in the theater right now. This very
Great.
real space that is definitely a movie theater.
Well, it's surreal as well. It's a surreal. This is a first for me to be there, pre-recorded on Zoom. But I know the feeling as well because I've obviously seen the film quite a lot. So so I know the effect as well at the end of a screening. And I just hope that everyone has appreciated and taken something from the film. You know, it's an intense piece. I know that, but also the thing that we always felt, and I made it very much in collaboration with Elliot Page. And we always felt when we were making it, and I love working this way because you, it's a different process, really. You know, it's a much more about a friendship. It's about trust. It's about proper trust between yourself as a director and a writer and your actor. And we always said that we made the film with absolute love. You know, that was the point. And it was a film that was really throughout. That was always our guiding thing, that we did it because we sort of believed in each other, trusted each other, and we also believed in what we were saying with the film. And it was, you know, it wasn't easy to make. No film is, but I can be when I see the film and I see it with audiences, I think that that sense of love and care comes across. I hope it does anyway.
I'd love to talk about the inception of the story for Close to You because the two of you, as you said, worked so directly and closely with one another. How did you and Elliot first come up with the concept for the movie and who came up with the story, the pitch? How did it come to be?
Well, it was literally that we were introduced by a casting director, and I think it was one of those meetings. It was actually I was in London, Elliot was in New York, but it was one of those kind of general meetings where you just meet actors and talk about, you know, kind of decide if you want to work together or if you have some alignment, you know. And we found that we connected on lots of levels. And I think there was an immediate yes, we've got to do something. And we just talked about things that were interested us, you know. And the thing I think that that I had in my mind was this idea of re-meeting someone from your past that you had a connection with or a love for after years and years going passing by. So it was all connected to going home, re-meeting someone from your past, and seeing, and that was the sort of start of it. And Elliot immediately related to and liked that theme and idea. And then basically I started sort of writing out more ideas to do with it, and it just kind of kept going. It kept going and kept going to a point where we were both really happy with the overall story and the themes in it, you know. And I think I mean, the way I make films, it always has to have, you know, they are very personal, you know, they're personally made, they're about personal things, they're about all the tricky bits in our lives as well, you know.
And I think this film
And
especially is notably personal too because of Elliot's own life history and story and how that touches on a
that's
lot of the themes and events that took place here.
exactly, you know, and even down to, because when I first came up with it, we didn't even think about or talk about where it would be set. Um, and then I said, but, and then I just said to him, well, where should we set it? You know, because it's really important to me that the actors always feel it sort of means something to them to be in a particular place. And of course, Elliot has a long and good relationship with Toronto, you know, a working relationship, but also he's lived there for a lot of his life. And he said it sort of has to be Toronto, really. So that was good because then you know, because often when you're getting these things together, it's like, well, where is it going to be? Like, where should we do it? Where should we make this? You know, that for me is always a sort of an important decision. Um, and you know, and then it always it was the next thing was, well, where would the small town be? Because it was important that it was a small kind of place that it has a sweetness about it. It's slightly idyllic in some ways, you know, all those things, you know. But and I found Coburg, Ontario, which is the other direction to where you are now. So it all unfolded rather wonderfully, and it happened quite quickly as well. You know, after the meeting, I got together with the ideas, and we developed the script quite quickly over Zoom, um, because we were in different countries. And it just shows you if you have a will and a desire to make something, you can do it. You can actually do it if you believe in it enough and you want to do it enough. Um, you can make a film, which is what we did.
If you have a will and a desire to make something, you can. I want that to be one of the taglines of the entire festival right there.
Yeah,
And I'm
you
saying
can.
that to the technical team in the back as we're recording this can make note of that because I want that on a poster. I love that. Um,
It is so true, isn't it? Because it's actually it is a lot of work. We know it's hard to make a film and it's a lot of work, and but actually it you've got to have that extra desire to do it, I think. I think particularly, you know, kind of independent films that are kind of low budget and are about things, you know, that's also a little bit sort of testing for an audience because it's not like a it's not a Marvel film, is it? Let's
no,
face it. You know, you know,
no,
it's
I would love to
about fact.
see the hybrid between Close to You and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's I'm looking forward to that
Couldn't
at
be more different.
OFFA 2025.
Yeah. But I'd be very interested to. I'm. The reason why I wanted to come is because actually I find the response of audiences really interesting. I just find it interesting. It's it's sort of it's not what I thought it was going to be, which I'm really pleased about. Actually, I'm really pleased
How
that
has it changed? How has the reception from audiences been different than what you expected?
well, the what I felt when that actually I had no doubt that people would be moved. It's a moving piece, it's quite an emotional piece, you know, and people talked about in previews about how affecting it was, you know, how much they felt for Sam, the lead character, you know. Um, I didn't realize that people would 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 find humor in it, you know, which they tend to do, you know, and and so I've been really interested by those parts because actually I think, you know, you need to with a film, it can't just be one thing. It's great if it's moving and emotional, but also this it makes you laugh as well because there are bits, and the laughter I think sometimes is about a kind of release, you know, a release of sometimes tension. You know, because it's intense. You know, there's intense moments in it, aren't there? And so the laughter comes from almost like the absurdity of certain situations, you know, which I but
It's
I've been so pleased by that, you know. Yeah.
I think it's unique too because absurdity as a concept in theater is so common both in the Canadian and English tradition. So the fact this is a
That's
co-production in
right.
Canada and the UK, right? I think of
That's
Harold
right.
Pinter immediately. That's a lot of the style of humor that kind of eschews from the movie. I'd love
Absolutely.
to talk about your first experience in Toronto. Tell us about, because you said you wrote the script and the concept over Zoom and then finally came here to Canada. in fall
That's right.
2022 to make the movie. What was that like when
Exactly.
you first arrived here to see the settings in person?
Um, I mean, obviously, I'd been to Toronto before a couple of times before, actually. I had previous films at TIFF, and I actually came when I was a child because I was a child actor, and I was on a publicity tour for a film that was a Stanley Kubrick film, in fact.
Oh,
So I
wow.
had that. Yeah, yeah, it was like a big experience, and that was a big film, and it was quite a thing. But so I had some experience of Toronto, but it was obviously it was that thing of arriving, um, realizing, and people said, like we're going to be shooting end of November, December, so it will be different to what it is now because I arrived in September, and it will be different. And I thought, yeah, well, I'm sure it will. It's winter and all that. I didn't quite realize when it came to the shoot, which was the end of November, just how challenging it would be to make a film in those conditions because it doesn't particularly look it on screen, but it was really really cold, and that of course does affect how efficiently you can work because actors get cold, they're feeling different things. It's quite hard to be emotional when you're really freezing. So it's all that stuff. But so I didn't quite realize that because it was actually very pleasant when I arrived. It was like the end of summer. It'd been really hot and all that stuff. But what I did was I just started the process of looking round for both actors to be in it, the other actors that would support Elliot, but also locations. So I did lots of looking around. I was basically after a place that you could get on a train to from the center of Toronto, and it to be a bit of a journey to somewhere quite different. So I found quite early on this place called Coburg, Ontario, which I liked it because there's a beach there. I like a beach, and it all sort of clicked into place. It all seemed to be the right place. I met some great actors that I just felt very happy to work with. I think everyone in the film, I'm really proud of their performances, and it's a just was a really interesting and engrossing process of discovery, but also making the right creative choices, and it all felt right.
Was there a particularly challenging day on set? What was the hardest either scene or day to work on or to film?
I th well, I think every day was quite challenging because um, you know, because because one was dealing with um really, I think the relationship that we have with our families is intense and it's always it's always going to be difficult. There's always going to be things that are difficult about it. Even when it's at its best, it's difficult. So um at least with those family scenes, we had that house. I chose the house deliberately because it was big. It was a big property. Um, it may not look that big, but it really was. And I kind of liked it for its spaces, different spaces that we could work in. And so we could spend quite a bit of time out of the cold, in that environment, working on those intense scenes. So that I liked. It was when we were exposed outside, particularly, for instance, one of the big challenges was that actually we did a certain amount of filming, um, which then required continuity. And there was one day where it snowed really heavily. And so, of course, we couldn't then complete certain scenes because there was not snow previously and suddenly there was snow. So that,
That's
and
a
you
very
literally couldn't keep,
Canadian problem to have.
but there was so much of it, you could not have cleared it, like entire, so one had to slightly readapt to that kind of thing. So that was, I think, the biggest challenge, continuity. And so we had to kind of reshoot those scenes in the snow, that kind of thing. And also the cold, as I say, being, for instance, when Elliot gets off the train and uh, says goodbye to Catherine on the outside the train station, and she goes off, and then he walks as if walking towards his house, and it's raining, and it looks quite inoffensive. But that was really cold rain, and everyone got really wet. And of course, it just seeps into your body and your bones, and it's just really challenging in terms of as a performer to then, if you've got want to do another take, just going back to that and regrouping it just makes the whole business of making a film harder. But then I think there's something about the adversity of it which is good as well. Filmmaking is an adverse business. It's a strange business. It's full of problems always that you've got to sort of overcome. So in a way, if it's all too easy, I don't think that necessarily makes for a great film. I think adversity is part of the process.
Now, Close to You first premiered in Toronto. I thought this was quite special because it was so central to the area. But you got to premiere this at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, last fall. I'm
That's
curious,
right.
were you present for this? What was it like having the experience of the local audience being presented this local product? What was their reception to it when you
Well,
got to go to the
it's,
premiere?
yeah, I mean, I think it was a difficult TIFF this that last year because of the actors' strike.
Yes.
Um, and it meant that a lot of actors didn't come. Elliot did because we got special dispensation from SAG-AFTRA, because we're a small independent film, and I think they also saw the importance of it, and also, I think their difficulty is with the big streamers and the big studios and that stuff, and less so with
I think the
independent.
Royal Alexander Theatre just got lucky because the few exceptions where talent got to go, it was all in that theater.
Right, that's
Everybody
right.
got that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I found the whole thing of it being in the city where it was made with Elliot, who is much loved by Canadians. Um, uh, I found it all rather overwhelming, actually. And then and of course the themes are delicate, and they're important. And I just it was kind of too much for me slightly. Do you know what I mean? It's like it wasn't just the premiere of the film you've made. It's all those other elements which added to it, really. Um, and it was a big deal. It was a really big deal, and it was like just a relief to get that one done. It was a much more because then the next outing for the film was at BFI Flair here, which was a much more relaxed business in many ways. It was more we the pressure was off, the pressure had gone away. It didn't have that intensity of being in the hometown with Elliot in his in Canada, all that stuff. It was like it was so intense. Whereas Flair was just relaxed and I think that was more enjoyable, if you like. But they're not. There's something about exposing. It's an important aspect of what we do is exposing oneself through one's work. uh it matters. It really matters because you've spent a long time on it, and you've put your heart and soul into it. You've put your life into it. So of course it matters almost too much how people feel about the work. I'm just rather pleased that it is about something that is actually rather important to a lot of people. I mean, um, and hopefully the film can go some way in kind of illuminating aspects of identity, and gender, and I think that's and provoke debate, and that's all you can hope for, really.
We're almost out of time, but before we go, I have one last question I like to ask frequently at these events. You've had the opportunity to be working in performing arts and digital media for almost 50 years. If there were an aspiring director just coming out of school in the audience right now, what is the one bit of good advice you would give them as they begin working here in the film industry?
I would say whatever it's almost the best thing to do is find something in yourself that you know that you can do in your way, in kind of your way, that there's a that you can have your authorship somehow shine through with it, um, and never stop believing. You know, if you believe, it's believing in yourself. I mean, in some ways, you've got to, you know, you've got to believe you could be the best at what you do. That's the point, and just really keep going at it, and take the knocks, and just always go back at it, because there's many knocks along the way. You know, many things haven't happened, don't happen, but you've got to accept that and keep going and get on to the next one. If that one doesn't happen, move on, or just keep trying to get that particular film made, you know. But I think the main thing is recognizing in yourself something that you feel is unique, that you can bring to your work. I think, and then you can't go wrong, really, you know. I remember going to a Q&A with a director called Ang Lee. Do you know who I mean?
Yes, of course. Academy Award-winning director Ang Lee.
Yeah. And someone asked that very question of him, and his answer was, "Don't, don't come into the business. Don't do it." And I thought, no, I don't think that's right. I mean, his point was, it's too hard, it's too difficult. There's so much failure involved. Da, 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 da. I mean, my feeling is, if you've got that feeling in you, and you've got that passion, and you've got that desire, you must do it. There's no alternative. You have to do it. So that's my advice. You have to do it.
You have to do it. Wonderfully said. And if you've got the desire and the will to do it, you can. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests of the crowd, please join me in thanking Dominic Savage for being here with us exclusively for you at this audience of Close to You today. Now, if you enjoyed Close to You, don't forget this film is eligible for the People's Choice Award. It is the most important prize that we give out here at the Oakville Film Festival. The emails associated to your tickets will be sending you out ballots so you can select Close to You as your favorite movie of the festival. And the only way it wins is if you go home and vote. Those email ballots should be coming to you shortly after the screening finishes. And don't forget, we have lots more great events coming up tomorrow on Sunday, so you can enjoy other films right here at Film.ca Cinemas. Our thanks to Film.ca Cinemas for being our co-presenter this year and hosting this wonderful screening. Our thanks to the technical team at the back and to Wendy, who's been running the show. Wendy was actually at the premiere of this movie last fall and just raved about it. And I remember when she first asked, should we program this here for Oakville? And I said, absolutely. I think it'd be great to have the hometown crowd, but also the gift of you, Mr. Savage, joining us from London today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being part of this very special event.
Thank you. Thank you.
To everyone else, please get home safe. Have a good night.